one, and we are live. Hey, Amy, welcome to the 8x8 Pod, a podcast which I've put together to essentially bring value to the HYROX and fitness racing community, so as we can learn from the best. So I think without further ado, I'm Ryan Hamill, aka the Hybrid Cowboy. I'd love a little bit of introduction to who's Amy, like how did you end up in the sport? What's your sporting career been like?
I'm Amy Bevilacqua, almost 51, so I've been in sport for a while. Dabbled in a whole bunch of endurance sports, though I started out as a child doing gymnastics, so I had some basis for the strength stuff. From there, I got into cross country and track. Ran track cross country through college, Division III.
Cool.
No big deal. I was no big deal. I had a good time and did my best, but didn't win any championships there. And then took a break. I ended up getting a job, a real job. I call it a real job in New York City, downtown in the financial district for a few years. So I was really just running recreationally in my early 20s. Then I left that job to fly on the trapeze for a few years.
Okay. Wow.
Up working for Club Med, which is the vacation all-inclusive resorts, teaching flying trapeze. So that drew kind of upon my gymnastics background. And I discovered that I could never, ever sit in a cubicle. So I learned that. Ended up in Japan in a traveling circus for a little less than a year. And then I came back to the States, kind of, I guess you could say, settled down, reconnected with my husband. Well, we reconnected and then got married. Started doing triathlon at that point. That was we'd go on triathlon dates and triathlon trips. And
was there a distance that you liked? Did you do the longer ones or did you do the Olympic ones? What was your sweet spot?
We started out with the sprints and then the Olympic distance or international distance was really my thing. I tried a couple half Ironmans, but they didn't really work for me. But I was pretty good. I got to the elite level. I got a pro license in triathlon. Simultaneously, I had a couple kids. Ended up getting my pro license. So I was doing that pretty competitively. From there, I got into strict road cycling, which was always kind of my strength in triathlon. I was never a very good swimmer, and I got frustrated with it. So I decided to go towards cycling. Did that for a few years. Then I got I got sort of tired of all the equipment, and every race I'd have to bring my husband because he would fix my bike, so that we have to bring the whole family, the two bikes, and I wanted to kind of simplify my life a little bit, so I got into OCR, Spartan Racing.
Okay.
That was like 2017, 2018. And I did that. I enjoyed that because it incorporated kind of the running, little bit of strength. I would slip off the obstacles sometimes, but, and then I went from there and I found HYROX in a magazine and I thought, hey, I could do that. The obstacle racing was nice, but I did not like the dunk wall and the cold water and the rain and the, so I really liked the idea of the controlled environment of a HYROX and knowing exactly what I needed to train for and being able to say, okay, really, really getting some statistics and, it was definitely nice and it was very simple. All I needed was my little outfit and my shoes.
Low barrier to entry, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I didn't. At that time when I was first signing up, I did New York City was my first one, 2023. So it was a local race for me. I didn't realize I'd also be getting into needing passports and overnight flights and Airbnbs all the time. So that, I'm not going to say HYROX isn't complicated in some ways.
There's one way to avoid that. Stop performing.
I'm sure that's inevitable. But yeah, so I just found that HYROX really played to my particular strengths because I have enough speed left in my run legs that I can, you know, run the pace that I need to run for HYROX. I don't have the top end speed that I used to, but it's kind of maybe a half marathon, sometimes 10K speed, which I still have. need to keep working on it, but and then the strength events are, they're hard, but they're not CrossFit level hard. So it's kind of a nice compromise there.
Yeah, they're kind of less. There's less complexity in the movements, but it doesn't make the movements easy, right? You can do them at high intensity without too much fall,
Yeah.
and that appeals to the wider market, which is great, especially with someone with like a gas tank like yours from the triathlon and endurance background. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And so, like, what was the peak? What has been the peak of your HYROX performance so far? What's been like your gold star performance, in your own opinion?
I think my favorite race was probably the last chance qualifier in Anaheim when I qualified for the World Championships. That wasn't on my radar at the beginning of the season, and after DC, I had pretty good race, and then a terrible wall ball, so I lost a couple minutes at the wall ball. So,
Right.
but I thought to myself, well, if I can, if I was up there with Lauren Griffith, we came into wall balls together, and I'm like, okay, I'm here. She just qualified. I could deserve, to be there, and I definitely should give it a shot. So I decided to go to Anaheim. Brought 3 of my kids with me, so they were there cheering me on. That was fun. And I think I probably peaked for that race because I figured, like, it's now or never. I might as well peak for this race and then, try to carry that into Worlds. So I was really happy there. I hit my wall ball goal pretty much. I didn't screw that up too badly, but they didn't have the sensors there. They had the sensors at Worlds, which threw me for a loop.
Okay.
But no, that was a wonderful race. The girls that I was racing with, we were all of course, we were racing each other, but we were rooting for each other too. And it was a really nice vibe at the finish line, even before. I just enjoyed it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And going into this season, do you have any big expectations? Any goals that you've set that you wish to share with the community?
It's funny. Like, I think everybody has their first season, their breakout season, and you're just on this constant high. And now, and then you settle in, and it pretty much I was exhausted after Worlds between the travel for Anaheim. I know it's in the U.S., but it's on the other side of the country, and it was an overnight flight. And then again to France. So I don't think I realized how tired I was, because the first week I was like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And then after week 2, I just was like, oh boy. So June was pretty much, I was doing yard work, running a little, riding a little.
Yeah.
And then July came around and I'm like, okay, can I do this again? It's always that feeling like, wow, I can't believe what I did. And I don't know, can I do it again? Do I want to do it again? And I do. I definitely, the motivation is there. So July, I kind of built back into some tempo runs. I was doing hill workouts. No real speed yet because it's a little intimidating going from 0 to just real speed workouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like I have some unfinished business, and that, there are areas that I can definitely improve upon. I don't know that my running is going to get much faster, but if I can keep my running where it is and improve upon some other things like my ergs. I mean, I only touched a ski erg. The first time I ever touched it was at my first race, and then I only ski erg during the races, and then Christmas time we bought a skier and a rower. So, I've only been training that stuff since January of this past year, so I feel like I can improve there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the wall balls, I lose massive chunks of time. I think and I've been doing a lot of them. So I'm hoping to improve on those 3 stations in particular and see where I can get.
And how does the I'm learning with the rest of the community. I actually to this point I've competed in lots of different events as you can see in the back, but I've never actually done a HYROX. I'm doing a HYROX affiliate race on the 21st of September, which is just down the road in Alicante, and then I'm going to do Bilbao next year. But I'm not 100% sure on how the Elite 15 qualification happens and how long that stays with you. Do you have to requalify for that every year? How does that?
Yeah, right now I believe I'm in 20th or 21st, so I'm out of the Elite 15. It's taking your top 2 times in any race from the past 365 days.
Okay.
As of, like today. So anytime that, so if you had a time on September 1st of 2023,
yeah,
it will expire, in a week. So then you'd have to take your next 2 fastest times. So my plan currently, and I think I'm going to stick with it, is to go to Toronto, which is October 5th, and try to hit a 104-ish, which is about what I ran in sub 104 in Anaheim. So, because I have a 103.50 something and a 105.50 something, so that averages to a 104 high.
Okay.
There's a lot of female times between 104.0 and 105, so if that could get me a few spots up, that'll be great. If not, I may try Chicago or Dallas. I would like to go to Vegas in the Elite 15. So
wouldn't we all? And what does it mean to be an Elite 15 athlete? Like, obviously, you get the apparel provided for you. You get a nice fancy name on your jersey. Like, what else? What else does it mean?
What else do you get?
Yeah.
Well, there is some prize money involved if so that's nice. It's just, I think it's more the experience, the exposure. It's just a feeling of like reaching the pinnacle of something that you're striving for. Like, I'm not gonna most likely win, but for me, just being in there, is kind of the goal. And then, I get to Worlds, and it was really fun. Like the whole build up, and just being there with everybody. We had our special little room with our chair and our name on the wall, and shoes and sweatpants, and it sounds kind of silly. But I think it's more the feeling of accomplishment.
Mission.
There's sponsors and this and that. I haven't really, nobody's banging down my door. I don't know if I fit the actual profile for, a sponsor who's, I'm not 25 and rising. They're probably like, how much longer can she stay here?
You just got to keep winning, right? Keep winning is the soul of everything.
Yeah. Get sponsored by I don't know, like some sort of old age like Prevagen or or something.
You just have to.
So the opportunities that arise from that, but no, Puma hasn't been knocking on my door yet.
Okay, cool.
It's really, it's a wonderful thing. I feel like, a lot of parents, once you have kids, you start kind of living through them and experiencing sport and competitive stuff through them. And I fell into that. I kind of fell in and out of that along the way. Like I'd get a little over involved in my daughter's gymnastics, or, not really soccer because that was never my thing, but I found myself really getting wrapped up in that. And then I'm thinking to myself, this is her thing, and she should be able to do this, to the extent that she wants to do it. And if I want to be super competitive type A, like that's on me.
Yeah.
So, so I sort of pulled myself back from their stuff and put it into my stuff. And I think it's a good thing.
I think it's maybe even better strategy, right? Like myself, most of my career I've been in sales leadership within tech, right? And at the same time I'm leading a team, when I tell people how to do it, and they don't do it that well, but when I show them how it's done, they do it well. And I think that applies to parenting as well. If you focus on your own thing and show people how to lead from the front, I think people follow more naturally, right? So I think there's lots of different ways of thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very interesting. Okay, cool. So let's mix things up a little bit. Thank you so much for a good introduction. I think we've got a good idea of who you are as a sporting person.
Yeah.
Now I'd like to change over to slightly not rapid fire. Like, please give it some thought. Give me a reasonable answer.
Okay.
And let's get to know you a little bit more as a person and how you think about training and athletics a little bit as well. And I'm going to try and change up the mood a little bit. I'm going to try and add some music. It may work, it may not work, but let's see. I'm more engaging for people. Let's see if I can get some tunes on. Okay, there's some tunes on in the background. Okay, cool. Are we ready to rock and roll with question one?
We're ready.
Okay, cool. Question one. It's going to pop up on the screen. I'm going to read it out to you, okay? So your surname, Bevilacqua. And from the research that I'd done, it was ironic for drinks water. So it was an Italian that liked to drink a lot of alcohol, did not drink water. So it was an ironic surname. And so in true Italian spirit, what's your post-race celebration, meal and drink?
Well, I do enjoy a good cocktail. Post-race, I like champagne, for sure.
Okay.
I always go out and buy a cold bottle and share it with whoever's with me. If I'm alone, I'll drink most of it myself. Yeah, so champagne. Meal, I really eat everything. Let's see, a nice big hamburger. Cheese, bacon. That's good. Pickles. Yeah.
Your Italian ancestors are doing this in their graves right now.
Yeah. No, my husband loves. He makes the red sauce every year, like jars and jars of it. So we always have red sauce on Sundays. So there you go.
Your husband was from Italian heritage as well?
Yeah, I'm German. So I have the HYROX in my blood.
So you were German?
Yeah, I'm German.
Oh, sorry, you married him. You got a surname. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm married into the Bevilacqua name. Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. A little bit slow on the uptake there.
That's okay.
Okay, cool. Nice one. Okay, let's go question two. What do we got in question two? How does someone with kids compete at the highest level of any sport? And what advice would you give to someone who struggles with balance or maybe even uses it as an excuse?
Yeah, okay, it can be an excuse and a valid one. But I think you can get around it. As I said, I was a stay-at-home mom, which was, I think, key to me being able to balance it. I did take all the responsibility for all the kids and the middle of the night stuff. I did all of it, but I also did not have to go to work in an office. I did a little bit of work from home, but for the most part, I was a complete stay-at-home mom, so I could arrange my own schedule. I could set everything up. I put them, for years, I took them when they were little. They had at the YMCA where I would work out. They had a kids club. I'd stick them in there. I'd get 90 minutes total that they could be in there. So I would drop them off, run to the treadmill, run to the weights, pick them up sweaty, go home, take a shower. When they were itty-bitty, I'd try to do stuff when they're napping, go out on the baby jogger. You have to be creative. You have to be willing to not feel like working out all the time because you're exhausted. When they're little, it's definitely, you just got to push through it. And if you want to do it, I believe that you can. I spoke about this on another podcast. Also, little things, hair appointments. I got my groceries. I didn't go. I cut my own hair. I got my groceries delivered. I just didn't have much of a social life. Didn't do the go out to lunch with my girlfriend thing.
Yeah.
Most of my friends were at the gym. So for me, social interaction would be if somebody's jogging next to me on the treadmill for warm up, I would talk to them, and then maybe during cool down. And that was pretty much it for a long time. Okay. So it's kind of sad, but that's the way it works.
Cool. So you're essentially just choosing your social settings and making sure it's something that aligns with what it is that you want to be doing as well.
Yeah. you can't say yes to everything. You know, I wasn't the class mom. I didn't volunteer for the bake sales or the, you know, the can collections or the Girl Scout cookies. Like none of that. So, you know, I don't know how.
Adding on to that, did you see Tia's performance in the CrossFit Games just recently?
I did, yes. I mean, not I don't follow CrossFit hugely, but yeah, it's amazing.
Incredible what she done with her physique in just 1 year.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
No, it is. I feel like as far as bouncing back from a pregnancy, a lot of that is what you do during pregnancy. So you can't just you can let everything go during pregnancy, but for me, I never did because I always knew, like, if I could, it was, you know, you mitigate I'm not going to say damage, but it is kind of like damage control. You know, the stronger you stay during your pregnancy, you'll have a better, you'll be in a better place.
Okay. Go. Ready for another question?
I'm ready.
This is a good one. Okay, cool. So Arthur Lydiard, do you know who he is?
Yes.
He's the guy that invented running, right? The first jogger in the 1960s. But went on to be one of the most successful athletic coaches of all time.
Yes, he's the base training guy, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So Arthur Lydiard's training philosophy emphasized the importance of base training. So much he suggested 80 to 90% should have been aerobic based. What do you like and not like about that theory for HYROX?
I think, I think 80%, 70%. I think it also depends on your background. For people who have no background in the long aerobic or the steady state aerobic, I think it's more important. I have a lot of background in that and not as much in the other. So for me, when I'm training specifically for HYROX, I have to make sure that I do the high intensity stuff that makes you want to feel like you just, you know, you're gonna like pee your pants after you're done with it. Like that's not what I'm used to. But if I really look at my training week, I do spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time on my bike trainer, actually. Just all of my warm-ups, kind of my cool downs. My easy aerobic days are usually on my bike because my body just responds better to that than the running.
Yeah.
So I do spend a lot of time, and I don't even always add it up because, you know, I'll be listening to a podcast or watching the news or, you know, doing something I need to do on my phone, and an hour will just tick by and I've been on my bike, and I'm very comfortable on my bike. So I think I do probably do still 70 to 80% of zone 2 / base training. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you think that slight part B to that question, do you think that there's a little bit of a hangover from CrossFit coming into the HYROX space for intermediate athletes where they just try and kill themselves on every workout and maybe don't do enough of the base? It's sort of the trend that I often see.
I think so. I mean, I also, you know, if you look at Instagram posts, it's a lot more engaging to post that I did this very sexy, exciting workout.
Yeah.
You know, most people aren't going to go post, I sat on my bike trainer for 75 minutes and listened to a podcast. Like, if I posted that on my story, you know, I don't know, would people keep looking at the stories if I posted that like 5 times?
Maybe David Loggins would, but that would be the only person that would. Okay, moving on. This one
but maybe people are doing more of the lower intensity stuff, but you just don't see it as much. But I do think it's important. I think it's important for the durability. The race, you know, an hour at best, 2 hours sometimes. And you don't get to stop. A lot of this high intensity stuff, you get used to like being able to stop. So, you know, it just and even stopping for a couple seconds at the water station at HYROX, it'll eat up your time. So you got to get used to just doing something without stopping for an hour and a half.
Okay.
I would say.
Are we ready for the question?
Yeah.
Okay. This one's a slightly different question. You may not have been asked this before. Feel free to pass if you don't like the question. But it's something that I read on your wall that actually related to me. So, Panic attacks can be a fear of the future. Depression can be living in the past. Why do high performers often struggle with both of these things?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, I had a couple experiences with therapy. Didn't really work for me, psychotherapy. But I did have one thing that one therapist said to me that stuck with me, and he said that anxiety, because I had more of the anxiety side of it than the depression side of it, but he said it stems from ambivalence. Okay, and I was like, okay, I didn't remember what ambivalence was, but basically, ambivalence is kind of seeing both sides of something at the same time, and so your mind kind of is split. So you're kind of floating between like, do I want to do this or do I want to do this? And if you don't if you're not all in, it kind of spurs anxiety. So I think it can come with like, if your lifestyle is such that you're doing a job, so you're doing a job and you want to like doing the job and you want to be happy, but the other part of you is thinking, I don't think I like this job, or should I be doing something different? That's where the mind kind of can't sit in that space.
Yeah.
The space of like flow and engagement and being 100% present. Because if I think about it, in my experience, when I'm really 100% in on something, it's when I feel mentally healthiest. So as I said, like, you decide to do a HYROX or something, or a sport, or a marathon, or an Ironman triathlon, and if you're deciding for reasons that aren't authentic, I think it'll catch up with you, and it can actually cause more anxiety, than it relieves. So when I find myself drifting, I'm always thinking like, okay, where am I? Am I making the right choices? It's just kind of that idea, and I can usually either resolve it, or I just have to kind of sit in it a little bit until something changes.
It really is such an important topic. And panic attacks, I know that you've had one in the past, and it's a horrible situation. I've had them in some very difficult situations too. Often, I've actually had a full panic attack in front of 1,000 people doing a speaking session, which was terrifying. And I had one in front of my daughters when my wife was away. And they're terrifying. But I'd just like to ask another part of that question. A lot of the symptoms of a panic attack is what I feel after a very intense training session. So why can we not be comfortable with those symptoms while in a panic attack when we're laying on the floor after a workout, struggling to breathe with a high heart?
Yeah, for me, I think it's knowing the reason. My panic attack started out of nowhere, and I didn't understand where they were coming from. I didn't know when it would end. So it's almost the fear of the panic itself. If you just ran a HYROX, you can pretty much be assured that feeling is from what you just did, and hopefully it's going to stop once you get some electrolytes or something. So I think that's where, for me, it's like, why is this happening? And when's it going to stop? And when's it going to happen again? And if it happened once when I didn't know why, it could happen at any given moment. So that's the cycle that I found myself in for a very long time. Not a good place to be.
It's scary. The scariest thing that I've had to face in my life on numerous.
Yeah, it's just lack of control. And as I said, like you said, you had it with your kids, and the first time I had one, I had 2 little boys. They were tiny, and I just felt like I was losing control, and it was just a terrible feeling. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool. Moving on to a slightly different topic. Thank you for that. It's such an important topic to cover and for people to relate to, even people at high levels deal with them too. Question number 5. Power to weight ratio can be the difference between winning and losing in many endurance sports. How key is it in HYROX?
Oh, I love this question. And I don't really know the answer for HYROX yet. However, when I was cycling, which was like 2 sports ago, I was big into that. I would do my FTP test for 20 minutes, divide, and there was a chart, like if you get a certain number, your national class, your regional class, local class, and I knew that if I could cycle, and I don't remember what the numbers are right now, but if I knew going into any big race, if I could hit a certain number, I could do very well in the race. Win, especially if it was on a cycling's a little different, but usually I would do stage races with big climbs at the end, and that's when that comes into play. And power to rate in HYROX, I mean, Hunter, I don't know if you followed his experience.
Yeah, I've been following his experience. He, for the last World Champs, he tried to do a big weight cut and he kind of bonked at the end, didn't he? So
I found that very interesting because he actually, I think he drew upon the cycling. The Tour de France guys, he would always talk about their power to weight ratio, and he kind of used that as inspiration to cut weight and see how that would go for him. And he says it didn't go well, and so he's going to kind of swing the opposite way. I don't think I have enough experience with HYROX and that idea to answer that question fully. So yeah.
And I'm not familiar with what happened with Hunter completely. I know he didn't perform well, but there's potential that he maybe hit over training. He went a bit too hard in his calorie deficit, and that's what his issue was. Maybe it wasn't the power to weight. Maybe it was just recovery was his challenge going into that.
Yeah, no, for me, like, I was, HYROX for me is nice because I do have a naturally more muscular build. So, if I was just running, I think it would play more of a role, like you try to maybe cut some weight. But for me, I feel like my body type lends itself more toward a hybrid event. So I feel it's nice for once in my life. Like, when I'm cycling, people be like, oh, you got too much arms. And I'm like, well, what do I do with them? Like, they're just there. I didn't ever lifted anything. But so now I feel like, okay, I'm not trying to put like a square peg in a round hole anymore. So I can kind of chill out and not worrying about being the lightest. I'm definitely not the biggest. So right now I feel like I'm in a good place. And I'm not kind of trying to change my body composition too much. I don't want to get heavier because I know it'll be a little harder to run. And I don't feel like I need to get lighter because I won't be able to move the weights. So I'm just
still undecided. It's still playing itself out what the game is.
I'm not worrying about that. I can worry about hitting the little wall ball target.
Okay, cool. Question 6 of 8. We're almost there. So outside of coaching, do you see money in HYROX? Puma, I don't know whether you know, but they pay Usain Bolt, the oldest, fastest man in the world, tens of millions every year to this day. Do you think this is possible for HYROX athletes in the future?
I don't know. As I said, Puma hasn't been knocking on my door yet. But I hope it grows. I still do feel like in the States, not a lot of people, know what it is. I mean, I try to wear my HYROX shirt to the gym, and gradually people are recognizing it. But most people, when I say HYROX, they're like, what? So you have to explain it to them. I actually just found out there's Kevin Gregory, Bubbles the Clown. I don't know if you know, he's more DECA stuff, but his gym, he's a local DECA affiliate, and he just became a HYROX affiliate as well. Okay. So they're putting on a little event this weekend, and he's about 40 minutes from my house. So I'm trying to reach out, I'll go meet them, take my kids, we'll do some stuff, do some racing. But I just think, I think it has to grow in the States as well as Europe, and we'll see. I don't know.
All good. Okay, cool. Question 7. So we have now, if they were to replace one existing movement with a new movement that suits you, what would the 2 changes be? Because there's 2 changes, right? There's the one you're taking away and the one you're adding.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to say take out wall balls because, like, that is a person. I just need to get better at that. That would save me 2 minutes in my race time. So you could take out wall balls and replace it with pretty much anything else. I'd like a bike. Yeah.
Like a bike erg or like an actual moving bike?
it would probably have to be one of the air bike, assault bike kind of things. I'm a real purist, so I haven't been on that, and I'm doing this DecaFit, and in DecaFit there's a 25 calorie assault bike.
Okay.
So just actually last weekend I tried it, and it wasn't bad. You know, it was different. But I think any sort of bike, the assault bike would be a good station for me. Take out wall balls. If you didn't take out wall balls, which I don't want them to take out wall balls because I hate it, but I like it,
Yeah.
I could do without the sled pull, but that's not fun. I'm slow. I don't like it. I mean, it's not horrible, but I just don't find it. The other ones I like much better. So yeah, take out sled pull, put in assault bike.
Assault bike, yeah. I do most of my cardio training on an assault bike. All my longer stuff as well, I do on that. I love it. I've got one of the Echo Air bikes. So it's just my favorite piece of fitness equipment, I think.
You don't find it annoying that it's so hard to pedal? Like, even if you're trying to go slow? Like,
I'm a bigger guy, so I'm like 93, 94 kilograms. So I think like when you're that sort of size, it feels okay for me. It doesn't feel like a real grind on every single push and pull.
Because in all my cycling training, usually the cadence is between 90 and 100 RPMs.
And mine's between 50 and 60 on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if I were to go, if I were to go 90 to 100 RPMs, which is what I'm used to cycling at for my long rides and my easy rides, I mean, I'd be dead. I think. But
I think the difference between an airdyne and a cycle is there's no down phase, right? Whereas on a bike it's probably 70% push, like 30% pull. So the pull with the pedals is like a bit of a down phase. Whereas on the airdyne you're either pushing and pulling or pushing and pulling. So your heart rate probably mimics at about 60 revolutions per minute, or 60 RPM, than maybe a 90 on the bike. I think it probably stays pretty similar. I don't know. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to being able to like sit on a bike and do whatever I want with my hands. Because at home I have like the old triathlon bar set up, so I can just lean over and I can sit on my phone. So as I said, base training zone 2, like I'm not used to doing anything with the arms. So, but still, I'll take the assault bike or the air bike or whatever instead of the sled pull. That's my answer.
Okay. Wonderful. And last but not least, question 8, a 2-part question. So, question 8, part A of the question is one piece of advice for HYROX athletes to shave 10 minutes off their time. That's the first part of the question. So imagine someone that is maybe doing 90 minutes for a HYROX at the moment. What's one piece of advice that you would give them? And if they focused on that, let's say for 8 weeks, they could probably make the most bang for their buck.
I would have to say the running, and that's probably not what they would want to hear. But yeah, I'd say if you're running, if you're doing a HYROX in 90 minutes, I would probably say that the majority of your time is spent running, because I don't think the stations, unless you're really bad at the stations, but I think it's probably the run, and you probably need to go out and run at least 20 miles a week, 25 miles a week, speed work, tempo, thresholds, and I think that's where the improvements will be made. There's always going to be outliers, but if you had to look at the overall stats, I'd say the run. Yeah.
Perfect. That's great. I'm sure that'll help a lot of people. Probably not the answer they want. But
well, I mean, unless you're taking 10 minutes on the sled pull, but I think if you're seeing 10 minutes on the sled pull, it's kind of obvious where you need, like my first sled pull, I thought it was going to be a piece of cake, and it was like 7 minutes. I'm like, okay, well, I need to work on my sled pull.
Yeah.
If your wall balls are taking you 7 to 8 minutes, obviously you need to do more wall balls. But if everything else is kind of within the range, it's probably the run, unfortunately.
Okay, cool. And so with, I guess with continuity in mind, I'd like the athletes on today's podcast, i.e. you, to ask the next athlete. And the next athlete actually I'm interviewing is going to be a gentleman called Bo Willis, another one of the Elite 15 guys, I believe. Yeah. What question would you like to ask Bo to answer? Can be anything. Can be personal. Can be performance related. Whatever. Just to keep continuity from podcast to podcast.
Okay. Let's see. Question about from a male. I mean, we could always ask about shoes. That's always maybe that or Bo. Bo is from where? I forget.
I believe he's from New Zealand originally, and I think he bases himself in Switzerland now.
Okay. I would probably ask if let's see, qualification. I think your question about the qualification process is always very interesting. What the elites have to say, whether they like it, whether they don't like it, whether if you're in the Elite 15, do you think it's worth it to go to every single major, or to pick and choose because it's a long season? So I'd say something like that, like how if you're in the Elite 15 or on the cusp, like how do you deal with planning out your season? Will you travel to all of the races? Will you pick and choose? Something like that.
Okay, cool. We'll get that answer for you in the next one. So we will. But that is all of our questions. I think you give wonderful answers across the board. Hopefully there's a few different ones in there that got a little bit.
Yeah, that was fun.
That's awesome. And so, listen, I think you've given us 45 minutes or so of your time today, Amy. It's been great to get to know you and get to know your sporting background as well. And where can people follow more on your journey?
I'm on Instagram. I'm trying to, be as active as I can. It's Amy Z Bevilacqua. For my maiden name was Zindel, as I said in German. So that's it. Pretty much.
That is wonderful. And what's the next race to see you on? Was it Toronto? Is that what they'll be seeing you next popping up?
I'm signed up. I don't know whether I'm going to drive or fly. It's about 7.5 hours, but I'm 90% sure I'm going to be ready to try to rock and roll a 104. So, yeah. We'll see.
That sounds awesome.
And maybe there'll be no sensors on the wall ball targets.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Because they're mentally, I don't know.
Well, I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy listening to how you performed and shown longevity within sport for a great amount of time. I don't like to get caught too much up into age-related questions because, to be honest, I think that with endurance sports, people can really perform for a long time. There's actually a Boston Marathon study which was done over 50 or so years and showing, I'm not going to be word for word on it, and so just preempting everyone that may be off on the details, but your endurance performance increases dramatically from when you're 14 years old to 25 years old, and from when you're 25 years old for it to get back to where you are when you're 14 years old, it's not until after you're 70 years old. So there's a real slow taper off within endurance sport, and I think there's a lot of room for growth of middle-aged athletes deep into endurance. Ironman show that year in, year out. Some of the age groupers in the 40 to 50 group are pushing really good paces still, even in the 50 to 60 group.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Less than people. So there is. But listen, thank you so much. We can grab you on Instagram, and I'll look forward to hearing what Bo's response is to your question and keeping the continuity up.
Yeah, no, just because I was thinking, I'm outside the Elite 15, but if I was, and I didn't, I was like, I don't know if I want to go to Amsterdam and Hong Kong. I think I would just, by the time I got there, I don't even know if I'd be able to race. I'd probably be so tired. So yeah, the idea of all these big trips and trying to, peak and taper and peak and, see what people think.
It's a lot, and I think we're pretty good recording wise. The recording's cut from this point, and so that's cool. It's really hard to plan, Amy. It really is. Myself, I really wanted to qualify for the World Championships of Ironman 70.3, and on a number of occasions. My first ever Ironman race that I ever done, or half Ironman that I done, I trained really well for it, and I missed out on qualification for the world champion. My first ever won by 1 place, and I had to do 7 more events, and I didn't even get close to that performance. So in 20, in 2020, the COVID year, I dedicated literally 2 years into a build for 1 race. And then COVID hit, and I had to do that race virtually. So there was no qualification spots up for place. So that knocked the wind out of my sails as an athlete a little bit. And then I didn't really switch back on again until 2022, after babies were born and stuff. So I'm kind of finding my groove now. Really, just I'm gonna try HYROX and one of these events out just for enjoyment of competition and see what I can do. But I guess the first real goal for me within in HYROX is I've got to get close to 70 minutes or so, and I hope to do that by early next year. I'm a really good runner. For a bigger guy, I've always been a pretty good runner. Not as good as you, but I've been solid off the bike.
Yeah, it's a lot, and it's nice. I think a lot of people think they have to do a full season every year, for their whole career, and then they just quit. So I think the reason why I've had some longevity is just because I've had forced breaks, and I've had seasons where I haven't done. Some years I'll just do like 1 race, and a Spartan race, and then nothing, or So I think to go like season after season with 5 or 6 HYROXs each season, like. I wouldn't, I don't think the motivation stays the same, and then you just want to quit.
A lot of these athletes coming up though, like this is potentially going to be their career. This is where they're going to make their life. This is where they're going to make their family. They're going to find their wife. Like a lot of them are at the front path of that part of their lives where they're just finding themselves and like what it is, how it is they're going to build a career. So they've probably got a little bit more skin in the game, in that sense that they're. Like if it's not that, they're most likely going to fall back on coaching, and that's not an overly fruitful venture for semi-high level athletes.
That's definitely like all the sponsors and stuff. There's so much pressure. They put so much pressure on their athletes to do so much in one season. I feel like maybe just have them do like, I don't know, maybe have more athletes, pay them. I don't know, but they're not going to. It's hard to last because if you don't really love what you're doing, it's so hard to do it that it's just at some point, like I said, that anxiety thing, like you want to do it, but you really don't want to do it. And then it just becomes a bad thing.
It's a void that I've always struggled to cross myself mentally. And I think personally, it actually will be a regret that I didn't go all in on like sporting performance. I'm 36 this year. But like speaking to yourself, obviously I know that I could still compete at a reasonably high level if I really dedicated myself to it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've never really went all in. I still enjoy my beers. I still enjoy sport. The main reason I do a lot of these races is for the celebration afterwards. I absolutely love that. But listen, I don't want to take too much more of your time, Amy. It's so nice to meet you. I'm going to be following along your journey this year, and as I start to learn more about the sport and speak to more people, I look forward to reconnecting again.
Alrighty, thanks.
All right, well, lovely to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Good luck with the kids and everything. Bye-bye.
Thank you.